The multifaceted producer and songwriter known as Oneohtrix Point Never just dropped his 10th studio album titled Again. And then he followed that up pretty recently with an interview and Ask Me Anything with fans on the r/IndieHeads subreddit. And it really covered all manner of things. He's been doing a lot lately, working with artists from Young Lean to The Weeknd to Soccer Mommy and, working on scores and movies with the Safdie Bros. And I think the most popular genre of questions was, how did you meet so-and-so? How did you link up with so-and-so? How did so-and-so end up on this record or that record? But the first here is Shushu. How did Shushu end up on the song Crumville? That was a collaboration that took place completely over email. How did you end up working with the Safdies, and what is your process in creating a score for a film? His answer to that was that they had been long fans of one another, the Safdies and Dan. So the first time they met up was in New York City. And then how these things get made in the instance of something like Good Time and Uncut Gems, he says really just comes down to vibing out and having a collaborative atmosphere in the studio. And then they sort of discover what the music really should be in the process of doing that. Are you still friends with Noah Lennox, aka Panda Bear of Animal Collective? Truly one of the best to do it and a great friend. What was it like working with Young Lean? Dan posted a picture of Young Lean in the recording booth, and that is still material that presumably we have yet to hear. Kind of getting the feeling that that's some Young Lean project down the road that maybe OPN is helping him work on. But he showed a lot of love to Young Lean and saying he's one of the finest poets of our time, or making music right now, is what he said specifically. Another really great question, what director in film would you most like to work with? I will never get to work with the one I would most want to, And damn, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, Quentin Tarantino, I'm assuming that's who he's referring to, is working on his 10th film, which he says will be his last film. What do you guys think about Quentin Tarantino too? Is it going to be like a Jay-Z retirement, a rapper retirement, where he does end up coming out with more films later on? Someone also asked if Dan had met JPEG Mafia before and if he would be interested in working with him. He says yes, they briefly met, and yes, he would be very much into working with him. Now, that is a collaboration that could go one of any number of ways. I think the commonality between them, the common strength, is that they're both vastly versatile. So I think it really kind of depends on what kind of a project they're working on. If it's an OPN thing, if it's a JPEG thing, it could really sound different in different capacities, but that is definitely something I'm sure all of us would be interested in hearing. And then, when did you start working on Dawn FM with The Weeknd? And I love this question because I love Dawn FM and After Hours. So the collaboration started in 2018. They had met in 2017. And he says the rest is kind of history from there. Some of the other pretty interesting questions, the ones that I liked, were about his creative process. I mean, we have a very creative individual here that we're talking about. And from a lot of the answers that he gives to this category of question, it leads me to feel like he's a very patient and process-driven creative. It allows himself to be constantly creating, working on things, but allowing the music to kind of unfold in front of him and following those instincts that he builds up day after day and making music. So seems like a big proponent of getting up, going to the studio, and just creating, even if he doesn't really know what it is he wants to create or what he intends to come out on the other side with. A big motivation for him is just looking around and really taking in the different things that he can see in a given distance. And then if all else fails, take a walk. Dan says he takes a lot of walks. Even walking aimlessly is a very inspiring thing to him. I'm assuming since, like he said, you get your blood pumping, like he says, you see things outside, you soak it all in, you have new thoughts, you have new feelings, go back to the studio and try to come up with something then. Fans did ask a couple questions specifically about the album Again, the song Ubiquity Road. Someone asked if that was a dedication or a tribute to the late, great Ryuichi Sakamoto, who passed away pretty recently. OPN says basically yes, it is in a way, but more specifically, Sakamoto's influence on OPN is more of an overarching thing that's really taken place across a lot of his music, and of course even more so now that he is recently gone. He also gets a pretty good amount of questions about what kind of music he likes or is listening to, or what's your favorite album from this artist or that artist. Favorite Brian Eno project? Hard to choose, but he says Discreet Music or Thursday Afternoon. Favorite OutKast album? Again, he says hard to choose, but we'll go with 2001's Confield. Favorite Anco album? Animal Collective, and they just put out an album the same week that OPN did. Dan says if it counts, Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They're Vanished, the 2000 album that just features 2 of the bandmates. And then lastly, any new stuff? What's going on next? What are the future plans for OPN or for, one of his pseudonyms? One question here is, what is the deal with the sudden throwbacks to Echo Jams? Like, is Echo Jams still a thing? Dan says, yeah, Echo Jams has been on the brain lately, but that he very much intends to either release some old stuff that never came out or re-record some new things and put those out in the Echo Jams catalog. So I would say that's a massive W for fans and one of the coolest little bits to come out of this as well. And then he was asked about the Rebuilds live performances that he was doing, which cherry picks a lot of music across his catalog. And he reflected on that experience very positively, saying it was an amazing experience and it really helped him kick off the process of recording again as well. He even says he would like to release it, and the next year sometime would be nice. So that was all like the music-related questions, and we have it linked down in the description if you want to read through the entire thing. There's a couple random questions like, do you smoke weed? Shout out to the people asking the real questions that deserve the real answers. I just decided to plead the fifth, basically, and quote Bill Clinton. He says, I did not inhale. I would be interested to know what you thought your favorite bit of information was from this, or what kind of a question you may ask him. But we also got a recent interview from Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino. And I thought this interview is a much less hard-hitting one, much more vague answers to everything that was music-related. Are you dropping any new music anytime soon? Are you working on anything right now? What about the Childish Gambino name? Are you still dropping that in preference to your real name? All of these questions got a half an answer or less. I mean, there's definitely plenty of talking, plenty of words in the interview. This is about a 2,000 word piece that you can find now on Complex. He seems like a guy that's like moderately tapped into new and up and coming music because he's him, but also he's living on a farm. Low-key seems like he's minding his own business right now. And he gives what I would call a soft rap is dead take when he says, I don't want to say rap is dead. It's just not able to grow in the way it was growing before. It's a very different time. Who's making it and why and who they're making it for is very different. Which, like, yeah, art changing with the times. That's a pretty normal thing. So again, they talked about a lot of stuff in the interview. Some of it's about music. Some of it's about him. You don't really get anything super groundbreaking about what is imminent, what's coming next, but you do get a great feel for like what his life seems to be like right now. Constantly many moving parts, but not always something that we see up front, and it doesn't always manifest in an album from him or music coming soon. So now on to the next story. This was news that dropped like when I was recording last week's video, but a man has been arrested in connection to the murder of Tupac, which happened all the way back in 1996, almost 30 years ago. Now, there's been a lot of information that we've learned over the years, specifically from the person who has been arrested in this case. So Dwayne Davis, aka Kef D, and I don't know if I'm saying his alias correctly. Now, the authorities have been trying to put a case together against Davis for years now, since 2018, when he was being examined in a different investigation regarding connections to the death of Biggie Smalls. Now, these comments were protected. They could not be used against him because of a deal he was making with said authorities. So again, I think the important pieces of this are an arrest has been made. He's the only suspect left alive now. This arrest does in fact stem from a previous investigation of Biggie Smalls' death, and that this is someone who's already placed himself at the scene of the crime. He's written a memoir that has some of this information in as well. So in a way, he probably knew this day was coming, and here it is. Again, almost some 30 years later. And then I was really happy to see a nice little clip came out of Mos Def and Pharrell linking up backstage somewhere at the Comme des Garçons fashion something's happening in Paris. They're there. And the video is of Mos Def playing some unreleased music straight off his phone for Pharrell, and can't really hear the music, but you can hear the rapping and it sounds incredible. Now, I have no idea if he plans to release this music, when or ever, or even really what his mind state is about releasing music right now, but I know that he sounds amazing and what I heard just coming off of his phone. And that's pretty much what we got for the news stories this week. I'm going to throw up some albums coming soon here on the screen. We got a lot of stuff coming next week and for the rest of the month. Things are slowing down in November and December, but there's still lots of good new music to be listened to for the rest of the year. So thank you seriously for watching to the end of this video. We love you. If you want to help us out, just hit the like button. That's really pretty much all you got to do. We post videos every week here on this channel, so a subscription is the best way to keep track of those videos on a weekly basis, and we just really appreciate you kicking it with us. So I am going to be back here again next Friday with more news and another news roundup, so stay tuned for that. We also do a weekly new releases video where we break down all the new music that came out, and a shit ton of new music came out this week, so that's not something you're going to want to miss.